First station I worked for was WTSP in Tampa, and then I moved to KGTV in San Diego. I began as what they call an operations technician, but it depends. I mean, every news station has different titles for it, but I did a lot of the jobs nobody ever hears about in the news. I started by doing a lot of floor work, the teleprompter, and back when they had to do like paper, feeding paper. I ripped scripts, I did camera, I did stage managing, I did Chiron, audio, and where was I? Yeah, then that's about what I was doing, and that was in Florida. And then when I moved to San Diego, after I'd lived there, I was only in San Diego 3 weeks when I got a job, which is very rare. But I've got the job doing this technician stuff, and at that place I did mostly the same work, and then went from that to doing assignment editing. The assignment editor basically, I mean, a really dumbed down version of it, is in charge of getting people where they need to go, but where the news is happening. I actually started as an intern for my uncle has been doing photography for years, but doing videography, I should say, and he always did all the news magazine shows. So there's a pilot episode with the Barbara Walters show that I did, and we called it Moment in Time when we were starting it, but it changed to something else, and it was another news magazine show. But I did some shoots with him doing Dateline and 60 Minutes and 2020, and so that was an interesting into news, just because that's where I met people that were actually working at stations, and that's where I wanted to be, but it's really hard to get in. So while I was out doing a week-long Good Morning America shoot with my uncle, I met people that worked at the local TV station, and they said, here, call this person, so I could get a job. And I did. I called, and since I had the reference of the people that were at the shoot, I think we were doing hockey, that then I got the interview and got a job at the station. Actually, it was 10 years both. Yeah, I did. I enjoyed working in the news for a lot of reasons. I always said a slow news day is a good news day, but that's just because, nothing terrible's happened to people. But everybody always got paid for the days that was big news days. I mean, anybody could sit around and do nothing. So there seems to be a lot of time between newscasts, but we're always working in the background trying to find other things. Yeah, it actually has, and it's interesting because most people don't know what an assignment editor does. I mean, as a news assignment, is not something you can't go to school for it. It's kind of that, it's what's in you, and you have to be really good at multitasking and having patience and building relationships and being literally able to turn it off and on again. But the memory portion is huge, and the recall and the being able to tie those things together is what makes news assign work. Because if you don't know the town, and you don't know the chief of police, and you don't know all those different people, you're not going to know when there's actually something brewing. Interestingly, that's all exactly the same stuff that I use by being a teacher now, because I have to multitask, and I have to know that this kid's a jerk and this one's not, but then how to build that and make it all work together. So it's a lot of the same character traits in a totally different setting. My normal work week is nonstop. It's because there's a few of us that work there, or there were a few of us that work there, that actually know what's going on, because you need to have a little hand in everything. So after a while, I could be there Monday through Friday, but long days, get there at 8 in the morning, and there was always just like a big powwow with everybody. Sat down and said, here's what we have, here's what we're going to do today, and kind of distribute the work. But then as the day wore on, it may start with the reporters and the crew going out and getting a story, an interview, and building a package for that night's news. But when they're done with that, then they head back towards the station to voice it over, whatever they need to do to make it for the rest of the day. And then if they're breaking news, then you have to send them somewhere else. So what they'll do is the editor would put together all the stuff, and we'd send in the voiceover from the field, because then we had to go get breaking news somewhere else. So it's shuffling all those people in the right places all day, and also listening to scanners and making phone calls to figure out what's going on in other places. So then I would stay usually about till just after 7 at night, unless there was something huge going on, of course. First of all, if it's news that's just happening that day, it could be a matter of who's closest or who's finished with their work some days. But it could also be a matter of who's got the background in it and would know what questions to ask when they got there. So, or who's a better fit for being there. So it's a matter of knowing the reporters as well, or the crew, to know who can do it and who can get it that fast, or can do the touching story a little bit better. Not even a little.
No.
It's kind of interesting, because it's a really, everybody appreciates what we do, but like, it's not a job that you have grown up wanting. So it's nothing that can really be trained for, and it becomes just, it's a huge part of what the newsroom does, but I don't want to say underappreciated. It's just, I'm just another, kind of like a cog in the wheel, that you have to have the camera guy and the reporter too. So I've got the information and I disseminate it, but then they go out and put it all together. The stations I worked at had news directors. So that's the person that's in charge of the newsroom. There's also the operations side of it, and they're the ones that do all the engineering and the technical stuff, the technical side of it. And those guys report with the sales and everybody else to like the general manager of the station. Know your stuff. It's a huge responsibility, but it's not just being nice to people and being organized. While that's key, it's also you have to have a lot of the character traits to begin with. It's not just a matter of going in and learning it. I learned it a lot because there is downtime in news, so I would go sit and with those people that sat at the news assigned desk, and I would start picking things up. But you got to be willing to be a little scrappy and sit down and volunteer time or whatever it takes to learn all the nuances of it. Because in San Diego, there's 101 different communities, named communities within the actual city. That's just the city. I mean, that we had a whole county we covered, not to mention we also went into Mexico. So knowing where all these things are and how things are going to work, and it's tenacity. And if you want to do it, I suggest get in any way you can to a station, and then from there is where you start working your way into where you want to be.